Speaker, that harm can exist in a lot of ways. And I tried to flag it, and if for once somebody had just taken a point of information from a woman in the breakdowns in this tournament, then they would understand that libel laws exist in order for people's characters and reputations to be protected, because you understand that malicious intent is not simply going to be something that is limited to the scope of physical harm. You recognize, Mr. Speaker, that you do have to protect individuals from violence against their person. And that was something that they argued for here in today's debate. They treat freedom of religion as if it were just some inconsequential right that doesn't bleed in your ability to exist. We say this is absurd. It's extremely trivialized because you have to understand how intrinsic that right is to your life. It influences what you eat. It influences what you wear. It influences your social networks, perhaps where you even go to school. People often end up wearing their religion on their sleeve, and people or other individuals who are not part of that religious group make moral judgments about what kind of person you are based on the stereotypes that exist in society at that point in time. But they contest we should reserve the right to offend, which shows to you, and they say that this applies even to race, even to anti-Semitism, etc., which shows that they do not value anyone's identity enough to accord it a base level of respect. What we suggested from the opposing opposition was simple. You deserve respect not because you belong to the right religion, which is basically what they are doing. No, thank you, that the majority discourse in that society will dictate what religion you should belong to, but you deserve that respect precisely because you are a human being. And we would suggest from faith that it is more important to treat individuals as human beings with differences as opposed to allowing the dominant discourse in society to be one that chooses to undercut other people's rights. Basically, this is a policy of intolerance that chooses to breed even more intolerance. It is unacceptable for first world liberal democracies to adopt it. The last thing they said was absurd, was this idea of how religions should be able to hate each other because religions must identify themselves in juxtaposition to one another. We say, Mr. Speaker, that you do not, and this came from Alex, you do not have to engage in hateful speech simply because you want to have your own identity. They haven't proven that need. Yes.
Ma'am, we're not hindering anyone's ability to actually have this core identity in terms of practicing their religion. But what you need to tell me is that it is completely fine for us to restrict this religion, this criticism, just because they will be offended, which can be caused by so many other factors as well.
See, Mr. Speaker, what they don't understand is that you feel that you live in an environment where it is unacceptable to be who you are, then you will repress that personality. This is precisely why homosexuals decide not to act homosexual when they feel that the homophobia is too strong. In much the same way as if Muslims feel or if Jews feel that, that neo-white or neo-Nazis are out there and they need to be able to protect themselves, they will suppress their practice of religion. They will not live it out there and be proud of it. No thanks. The next thing they said was that not allowing offense was a bottomless pit. With two responses for this. First, they are basically saying that they don't want the extreme of banning all offense without really telling you precisely why moving away from one extreme necessarily means that you take it to the other unreasonable extreme. On the second level, opposition bench, and I feel like they fed words into the mouth of our opening op, which was never said. They never said, and we completely agree with this, that we didn't want the medium anyway. In the status quo, op-ed pieces still get published. Pundits can still speak. People, Mr. Speaker, can still handle all of these abuses that Alex says needs to be whistleblown. And at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, these individuals still exist. And there is a big difference between these people, between people who are legitimately, crying out grievances, and that's why they don't get attacked, as opposed to people who choose to equate Muslims to terrorists. People, Mr. Speaker, like Rush Limbaugh in his radio show. We say, Mr. Speaker, that people who constantly have access to the airways are individuals who must be asked to exercise a greater level of responsibility over their words and their actions. Because their contention was that this can still happen in the private sphere. But the effects, Mr. Speaker, in the private sphere do not go as far as to be as pervasive, as to reach a wider audience, and the ability, Mr. Speaker, to create a critical mass against a particular religion is exclusive to individuals in the public forum. And that is why their right to free speech must be restricted in that light. Because the last thing I want to talk about is the idea of societal harm. Their contention was that violence is a law enforcement problem. One, Law enforcement can only enforce what is mandated by law. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, their policy creates a volatile environment where it becomes unreasonable to expect law enforcement to be able to cope with hate crimes. For instance, what they argued for you here in today's debate was simple. This is a recipe towards the creation and fostering of dispositions in an environment that is conducive to instances of bodily harm. They haven't proven to you precisely how it is unlikely that if the dominant discourse in society is that it's okay to spit on people's religions and identity, all of a sudden people will be tolerant, and all of a sudden people will be respectful, and all of a sudden that if the first chance to strike is there, people will refrain from taking it. For all these reasons and more, Mr. Speaker, the fact that society is harmed by this policy, for the fact that freedom of religion should trump freedom of speech in this regard, we are incredibly proud to stand in opposition.
Speaker for 7 minutes and 11 seconds. We thank all speakers for our debate. We would like to invite teams to cross the floor and shake hands. And we invite all audience members and screaming fans to hang around the vicinity till the judges have reached a decision regarding the grand final.